hell is hot. I imagine souls get lost on their way to heaven all the time, but even a dumbass can tell when he's truly in hell. Shit, man, I mean, your balls are hot. Skin, sweat, slick, dry mouth with chapped lips but no chapstick, past purgatory like you passed Milbourne Station. Past turnstiles that you finna smack the motion sensor on so you don't gotta pay shit. Past the back of the train car where young niggas pass a backward, past the Dutchie on the left hand side. Past churches where old ladies pass out during the sermon screaming hallelujah until only the word is worship. Past corner stores and endless pavement, past mural arts that clash with brand logos and product placement, past gun laws and legislation, past empty lots and tiny churches, past the mosque and Friday service, past the school with no breakfast for our children. Past your auntie's house, and y'all not related, that's just your mama friend. How's your mom and them, how your cousins, yo, pass my love to them. Past the bombing of the Move building, shit, we still live right down the street from it. Past the Liberty Bell, where you can see Liberty get cracked, back shots off a blank wall, tell Miss Parker the city wants our history back. Past transplants and their Google Maps, past trans passes and snap cards, but just until you're good, cause I'm gonna need those back. Past the plateau and public parks, past fuck-ass signs trying to tell us not to play our music after dark. Past the pounding of pavement, the sounds like the mama's drummers, as I walk past motherfuckers walking too slow for my comfort. Past open mics and speakeasies, past your ex-boyfriend, he's a rapper, please can we walk faster? Past loud packs and quiet thunder, past the bread, I'll be your brother in a city that's known for our love, and let me give you something, maybe some game. I'll show you the past the blame, past the aim of all these words. I'm trying to pass the city's name, past the aesthetics and the acclaim. I'm trying to move past the glory, past the fame. I'm trying to pass a flame not only an open heart can receive. Past logistics when I'm spitting cannot be quantified, turned into a product nor be tame. Past lame niggas and plain Janes when I'm trying to tell you where we live. It's not heaven or hell, kid. It's just a city where we is. I'm trying to make you see past crime rates, past poverty, past gang ties, past the Powerball lottery, past every slot machine and every liquor store on every corner, past ICE agents and made-up borders, past what news reporters report on, past the noise that's not our voices, past bad situations and misguided choices, past what you might perceive as hell. I see people trying to maintain themselves. Dignity is deserved by all. I'm gonna pass on that model citizen shit they try to sell. Pass all that perception on and go and see our cities for yourselves, cause maybe you'll get lost, but even a dumbass can tell when he's truly in hell. Poem.
That's generally true.
The graffiti on the wall says it's the end of the world, and I'm hard-pressed to say I disagree. When you find yourself standing in the center of it all, it's getting easier enough just to believe that there's no one at the wheel and we're all floating into chaos, with hands and faces glued to the TV, waiting for another bomb to fall or someone else to make a call, with Florida to fall into the sea. Floating in the water, all the flailing sons and daughters of this late-stage end-stage capitalist engine. Armageddon's in the offing, there's atom bombs in every coffin, late-night confessionals to an app that's barely listening, admitting all my sins to a panel of my peers. As it turns, it's just a mirror in my bedroom, with my reflection turning back on me, and all of my inequities as the comets fall and turn into a vacuum. Watch the sky light up and the world fall down. No one's running, we're just watching and we let it all drown. No one's waiting at the station, eyes are closing, arms are open, dance alone. And the world ends, and we make it a good ending. So call it off and call me, maybe we can outlast all this crazy if we just hunker down, wait out the memories of every thoughtless, threadless argument. In the wake of every latent sin, we can turn to face the dead sun with our eyes raised towards the skies. We watch the sky light up and the world fall down. No one's running, we're just watching, and we let it all drown. No one's waiting at the station, eyes are closed and hearts are open. Dance alone and the world ends, and we make it a good ending. Yeah, we make it a good ending. Yeah, we make it a good ending. Make it a good ending. We dance alone and the world ends, and we make it a good ending. Last Sunday was the 40th anniversary of the Chernobyl nuclear power accident. Also it was Alien Day. Alien's my favorite film. I don't have a poem about Alien, but this is about Chernobyl. It's called Dyatlov Pass. Have you thought about what it's like to be split apart at the subatomic level? Every neon light sparking at once, dividing into brighter and brighter pulses, Röntgen and kilograms, grays and kilowatts, curies and hertz, decimals and dollar signs. A Geiger counter implanted in the center of the chest, diving into the sacred space at the center of it all, at the center of it all, at the center of it all. Your eyes, dissolving into components, foot by elephant's foot, walled up behind the reactor, biological shield launched into the roof that is no longer existing, a thermal bridge underneath and a sarcophagus above. Not great, not terrible, just bridging the gap. Energy released and dissipated into another end of the world. AZ5, RBMK, xenon, negative void coefficients, and other such semiotics for personal destruction. This one's called Reality No Clip Any % Death Spiral. She has a big-eyed energy about her, the girl in the mirror with the axe in her hand, wild and rare, facing the oncoming traffic lights, red and white, dancing alone to the beat of 1,000 masks falling to the floor, stretching hands out into the swimming air, grabbing onto the thought before it vanishes into the great void, swirling clouds in the shape of last month's scheduled nervous breakdown, pupils locked in, iris out, going gray to blue and never getting close enough to say, carving pieces off, slanted and disenchanted, prompting nothing but a future where the axe isn't necessary. I put myself on display nightly. Lower cases and capitals for all to see. No rest for the weary. Just push until the boulder gets to meet God. There's no way it'll come back. The past is past. You've done your best. I read the Sky for Portents of Anime Revolution. You have to read it right to left or it won't make any sense. There's no hiding in the space between words. Like atoms, the space is enormous, but not enough to fit through. Tearing open my throat just to show how serious I am about this. Again and again, I make my point, waiting for someone to call me out and ask the right questions. And I won't answer because enigma is sexy and nothing is easy. But let's be honest, I am. I've been burned before. I'm not afraid to admit. I've been broken and beaten and rebuilt from spare parts and gladly smiled and held out my hand and welcomed the next. And still I have been burned, touching the stove again and again, simply to hold a hand, to drive the point home, going 90 on the Turnpike North, fake blood pumping, just to feel the light on my burning skin and killing every negative thought in my empty brain. Please burn me. Sear and singe and scar and flare. Remove my skin one layer at a time so I become a glistening and pink reborn babe for you to gently hold and fold as I congeal and reform into a better daughter or sister or mother or unrelated forest being who haunts your woods. Until you start the wildfires again, I will touch your light every time and burn just for you. This poem is called Dead City. Take these off. They're not supposed to be for reading. This has not been rated by the MPAA. Jack Valenti has not seen a word of it. It is suitable for no audiences. It contains violence and adult language and the unadulterated feeling of living outside your timeline. Tobacco use, drug use, alcohol use, pronoun use, weapon use, notable systems of coping with intense layers of inevitability, medical trauma, marital trauma, medicinal trauma, maladaptive trauma, scenes of graphic violence against an Epiphone Les Paul special, void adjacent. Do not watch this. You will survive, but changed. Ratings cannot save you. Warnings are useless. You will be judged and found wanting. You will be judged and found guilty. You will be judged and found lost. You will be judged. Brief moments of juvenile levity. Cut this all in your own time. Break the chains, break the binds, bury yourself in dirt. Authorial trauma. Brief musical numbers. A small dog staring, waiting, wanting, hoping. Nudity. Sexual situations, profanity, a lot of profanity, a fucking lot of profanity. That V, when she wears her pants really low, and it's like, wow. Mild treason, intense treason, purposeful treason adjacent to arson. Just straight up arson, son. Queer themes, gender transition, socialism, communism, anarchism, the truest violence, the purest violence, the cleanest violence, the end of the dark, the collapsing of the wave, identification, misunderstanding, traumatic projection of selfhood onto fiction, squelching noises. Do you remember the dog? It's still watching. Body horror, the horror of having a body, the body of a horror. Monster fucking, Monster energy drinks, fucking, I don't know, man, blood. So much blood. Brief moments of lucidity, poetry, and one scene of happiness before the end. I lived my life twice over before I ever left my parents' home. I made it via spite and disassociation, deference paid to distraction, and medicated miracles of medication. Rap tapping the drum along with Reginald and casting aspersions at every side-eyed marionette. This year won't kill me if I won't let it. Driving 6 cylinders thrashing into 90 miles an hour, betraying my lack of understanding of the art of thermodynamics. We are all someone's number one crush, fighting the lion's teeth and grasping at the memory of a 24-hour documentary about the entire state of play for the future case tense of catching ghosts in jars. We will make it through this year. We will stand on top of the pile of corpses, bloodied and bruised, and we will do it all again until there's no more bodies to claim. And then we'll do it all again until there's no more bodies to claim. And then we'll do it all again until there's no more bodies to claim. And then we'll do it all again until there's no more bodies to claim. Mission statement. We, the undersigned, do declare that your subjects and predicates no longer comply. We are freed from the shackles of your ancient grammar. Strike down the brutal and brittle bones of history. Cast aside the clauses of comprehension in favor of fractal facsimiles spreading like seedlings. We will design the future using our blood as mortar and pestle, traipsing tracks on your tyrannical tempests and drive no profits nor profits. There is nothing you can promise that we cannot provide ourselves. Fiduciary, physical, phrasings, functions, fixations, fixes, nothing. Crush your skulls in amber and burn down your houses and piss on the ashes of your ancestors. We will leave you behind in your own filthy graves. And then we'll do it all again until there's no more bodies to claim. Die for your art. Kill for it. Eradicate the part of yourself that feels emotions counter the one you need most. A gasping, grasping wound at the center of creation, which needs your life and love. And there is no way to circumvent this ineffable law of the cosmos. Die for your art. Kill for it. Blood for blood's sake and art for art's sake. Open your veins onto the page. Rub your arms on the canvas. Photograph the trails and paint the stains. Remake the sky using the ever-growing pool at the center of the world. And then we'll do it all again until there's no more bodies to claim. And we'll do it all again until there's no more bodies to claim. Die for your art. Kill for it. Blood for blood's sake and art for art's sake. Die for your art. 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 Woo! This is on, not the record that just came out, but the last record, which is called Everything Not Saved Will Be Lost. This song was, it's very important to me. It was kind of a message to everyone who's trans and queer and marginalized out there that no matter what anyone in power does, we're not going to die. So there is a sing-along portion for this, which goes, whoa, we're not going to die for you. Whoa, we're not going to die. So if you pick up on it and you feel like singing along, I mean, I shan't say no. Anyway, this song is called You Are Not the Problem. They're washing off the graffiti faster than we could read it. They're reasoning out the history of how nothing's ever their fault. I stood in the empty, optimistic sunrise, looking forward to another night. Try to outrun the sinking feeling. I turn back and we turn to something that's all that they wanted, for us to be erased. But that's not what is coming. We're gonna rise up and be saved by ourselves. You can delete your browser history, it still exists in your memory. You can drive past the exit signs, but you can't put us in your tragedy. We're never turning back the clocks again. We'll never fall apart in the light again. I said, death before detransition, and it'll be yours before the end. We can take our names on markers, you can freeze us in our hearts, but we'll still be throwing fists up, and we'll still be who we are. And we sing, whoa, we're not gonna die for you. Whoa, we're not gonna die. You're gonna make it out alive. You're gonna find the light and thrive. And you're gonna be someone better than the world you left behind. You're the flashes of glow in a dull gray world. You're the end of history in the form of a girl. So grab your torch and let the bridges burn. If they're not gonna change, we're gonna make and learn. And it's so hard to know how far we'll have to go, but we're still not going backwards. We're gonna shine like the TV glow, and we sing, whoa, we're not gonna die for you. Whoa, we're not gonna die. Whoa, we're not gonna die for you. Whoa, we're not gonna die. Whoa, we're not gonna die for you. Whoa, we're not gonna die. Whoa, we're not gonna die for you. Whoa, we're not gonna die. Thank you.
In 2018, the Philadelphia Flyers introduced their new mascot to the world. The NHL was not ready for this reckoning. The NHL did not have the foresight to see. But in 2018, Gritty entered the zeitgeist, storming Twitter like the gates of the Bastille, was christened Philly's native son. And Philly said, what the fuck? 7 feet tall, laconic as the dead, footfalls that make the earth tremble and eyes that never close. Gritty watches while you fall asleep. Gritty knows your darkest fear. The rest of the world soon glimpsed this fever dream born unto the Philadelphia Flyers and echoed, what the fuck? To which all of Philadelphia then replied, fuck you, Gritty is ours. And ever since that day, Gritty has been a citywide treasure for whom all of Philadelphia would take up arms. Brotherly love, generations of trauma, the good and the evil, the yin and the yang. Gritty is all encompassing. Gritty understands. Gritty symbolizes every single one of us. We all matter to Gritty. Gritty is our identity and our Übermensch, a blessed source of light guiding us through the distress of the dark and the call of the unknown. A sigil of everything we hope to perhaps one day become. Our collective strife and our collective hope wrapped in neon orange fur. Gritty is a true emblem for our struggling city. And Gritty doesn't take any of your shit. A maverick, a savant, a leader by destiny, and a talisman by choice. Gritty is natural in his unnaturality. Gritty will usher in a new age of progress and peace. Gritty will save us all. When the Proud Boys came to Philadelphia and no Uber driver would give them a ride, Gritty was there. When ICE came for our neighbors and we formed a human chain around their homes, Gritty was there. When the Trump administration accidentally held a press conference at the Four Seasons Total Landscaping Company, Gritty was there too. When there are no kings, when we protect one another, when we unite to fight injustice, when our voices are raised, Gritty is there, and there he will remain, the Antifa hero we do not deserve. Thank you. One is called In Heaven, the Diet Coke Never Goes Flat. In heaven, the Diet Coke never goes flat. Unceasing, endless, a stream of effervescent nectar flowing in a Mobius strip. Diet Coke as far as the eye can see. And in heaven, I could forget how I drink Diet Coke to fill my stomach, to quiet my ravenous hunger, to fill the hole in my core I am still too broken to fill with food. In heaven, everyone's neurotransmitters work perfectly. Neurons fire and molecules bind and amino acids flood the labyrinth that is the cerebral cortex. My blood brimming with dopamine, my body a slave to my brain. And in heaven, I could stop taking my Abilify because there are no more faulty signals to undermine my joy. In heaven, the 8th season of Game of Thrones didn't suck. In heaven, there is an equal distribution of wealth. Capitalism was born on the plantation, human lives as currency, credit scores as chains, a machine relentlessly devouring a continuous line of exposable bodies. And in heaven, I would no longer have to sacrifice my flesh at the altar of profit for that machine to churn. In heaven, all of the religions end up getting it wrong. Sanctuary, salvation, to love and be loved, to control that which feels uncontrollable. And in heaven, I could finally exist without the scarlet letter of otherhood, because the God in whom I don't believe loves each and every one of us unconditionally. In heaven, I come every time. In heaven, no one's husband has cancer. Soulmates, lovers, 2 puzzle pieces perfectly aligned, children and cats and car payments and debt, decades of lived experience as a bonded pair. And in heaven, we would be together forever with all of this suffering behind us, because there aren't any oncogenes anymore. But there's no such thing as heaven. And this Diet Coke is flat. Thank you. Sticking with the Philly theme, it's appropriate. This one is called My Doctor Says I Have a Special Needs Placenta, and M. Night Shyamalan Can't Write Dialogue. I will defend the city of Philadelphia until the day I draw my last breath. Go Birds. So I am ethically obligated, therefore, to wholeheartedly espouse Philly's native son, filmmaker M. Night Shyamalan. Unfortunately, M. Night Shyamalan can't write dialogue, and I am not optimistic that this state of affairs is ever going to change. I suppose peaking after your first film must feel a certain way, but that is no excuse for creating the monstrosity that is 2008 cinematic atrocity, The Happening. Lying in an institutional hospital bed at the second public hospital in the entire United States, founded in 1791 in Philly by womanizer Ben Franklin. Go Birds. I watched The Happening as the sphygmomanometer tightened like a fist, and the pulse ox beat a rhythm, and the baby in my womb entertained herself by continuing to kick my bladder. It started in parks, says Mark Wahlberg wonderingly, as I thought to myself how my first baby nearly died before even having the chance to be born. My doctor says I have a special needs placenta that doesn't always do its job. My doctor said not to worry, but that's also what they told Zooey Deschanel during a gaping plot hole in The Happening. Have you ever wondered what it's like when your body is deliberately plotting to kill the precious human you have spent 40 whole weeks attempting to keep alive? I stare out the window at the Philadelphia skyline, Go Birds, while they begin to prep me for surgery, and I wonder if it might be the case that I have just wasted the last 2 hours of my time on this earth watching M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening. I know what's causing this. It's the plants, says a bit player in the film, effectively summing up the entire point of this debacle in less than 10 words. Let's go to the OR, chirps a nurse, like I'm not about to have a 6-inch needle stabbed directly into my spine, like there isn't a chance my daughter might not get to draw a breath. After 9 months of fetal monitoring and hypertension and intrauterine growth restriction and hyperemesis gravidarum, I lay on the operating table with my husband in tow and send up a silent prayer to the God in whom I don't believe, that the surgeon will not find meconium while evicting my daughter, like they found 3 years ago with my son. 5 more minutes, I urge my placenta, and then you can tap out. Just hang in there, I beg my reproductive system, while my arms are strapped down, and my body grows numb, and someone I desperately hope is not an intern ostensibly slices open my abdomen. It can't be 10 minutes later that my husband is cradling our tiny and healthy baby girl, whom I looked forward to having in my own arms the second I stopped shaking uncontrollably. And as I languish in my hospital room later that night, and the feeling returns to my legs, I think about how John Leguizamo abandoned his daughter in the first hour of The Happening, and how no amount of properly written dialogue could justify those events actually taking place. Because now that I'm holding a daughter of my own, it would take inhuman strength to pry her away. M. Night Shyamalan really can't write dialogue, but as the sun rises and the oxytocin starts to flow, I am nothing but grateful for this Philadelphia-based director who always casts himself in his own films like he's Alfred fucking Hitchcock. Because I love my city, and I love Western medicine, and I love the University of Pennsylvania healthcare system that has just safely delivered my child, so all is finally right with the world. Except for 2008 cinematic atrocity, The Happening. Thank you. When your husband's cancer isn't bad enough yet. When your husband's cancer isn't bad enough yet, he will still have to work a full-time desk job, grinding away his waking hours to make some CEO a profit he himself will never get to enjoy, filing endless TPS reports through the nausea and the fatigue, a victim of late-stage capitalism and cancer, because the mortgage still has to be paid even during Hodgkin's disease. When your husband's cancer isn't bad enough yet, he will still have to do all the laundry. A war of attrition with cotton and wool. A lifetime spent in mudrooms and gritty laundromats. A solo ascent up a mountain of soiled clothing because you are too arachnophobic to go into the basement with him, because non-Hodgkin's lymphoma doesn't make the chores stop. When your husband's cancer isn't bad enough yet, his insurance will cheat you out of 75% of your coverage because his renal cancer has yet to be invasive. Because even though his immune system is staging a coup and his lymphocytes are hopelessly belayered, none of that is quite devastating enough. So here you go again, back at the beginning for the third fucking time. When your husband's cancer isn't bad enough yet, he will still suffer from an anxiety disorder. And who fucking wouldn't? Fists balled and brain spinning and clenched molars sore from grinding because his body keeps conspiring to kill him. Because he can't help but picture his own demise. Because there's nothing you can do to help tomorrow or tomorrow or tomorrow. When your husband's cancer isn't bad enough yet, you will just keep trudging, living the minutia of your day-to-day life, paying taxes and driving children to gymnastics and feeding the cat, because there is nothing else, because life goes on, because we are both still lucky enough to even have life, because all any of us get in this world is time with the people we love. But maybe you and your husband will both have the luck to attend your children's graduations, to travel the world with matching luggage, to lounge on a beach with umbrella-festooned cocktails, to watch theater and witness sunsets and acquire more cats, to enjoy the golden years you have worked so hard to deserve, all because your husband's cancer isn't bad enough yet. Thank you. The poem is called Evolutionary Biology and the Wonder of It All. Or, Why I Want to Fuck Charles Darwin. I want to fuck Charles Darwin. Sometimes, on the origin of species gets me wet. I want to fuck Charles Darwin and his brain. Sometimes, I realize why size matters. I want to fuck Charles Darwin and his brain directly in front of his finches. Sometimes, I wish Charles Darwin would rail me in public, right in the middle of the day, right on the altar of a church. I want to fuck Charles Darwin and his brain directly in front of his finches while the apes get progressively smarter. Sometimes I think about natural selection and mutation and biodiversity and chance, and the very wonder of it all makes me come. I want to fuck Charles Darwin and his brain directly in front of his finches while the apes are getting progressively smarter, as Alfred Wallace sighs dejectedly and rolls over in his grave. Sometimes I imagine making Charles Darwin moan, and I get the urge to perpetuate our species, but only so my offspring can go on to perpetuate our species, ad infinitum and far into the future, because cogito ergo sum. I want to fuck Charles Darwin and wait, where was I going with this? Sometimes I fantasize about threesomes with my husband and Charles Darwin, and in the throes of sheer ecstasy, I feel gratitude for the first anaerobic prokaryote that woke up in the primordial ooze and decided to evolve. Sometimes I feel all-encompassing awe that evolution has gifted us giraffes and dragonflies and narwhals and wheat, all from the very same elements and all at the very same time. And I am utterly blown away that I am a part of this fantastical process which took 1 billion universes, 1 billion years to begin. I want to fuck Charles Darwin because intelligence is fucking sexy, because our very bodies are a miracle of star stuff and luck. Sometimes I feel so thankful that I did not succumb to all the ideation and despair. I want to fuck Charles Darwin because intelligence is fucking sexy, because our bodies are a miracle of star stuff and luck, because we are fortunate beyond measure for every breath we have the privilege to take. Sometimes the reward of existence is actually worth the Sisyphean effort it takes to trudge through this life every day. I want to fuck Charles Darwin because evolution is magic, disguised as science. Because simply arriving at this moment required the sum total of everything, everywhere that has ever been. Because all we can do is try our absolute best in this fucked up world. Because I think Charles Darwin might have understood that too. Sometimes, even if I'm not fucking Charles Darwin, I am still just ecstatic to be alive. Thank you.
I'm from New Hampshire, and this is the last stop on my world tour of Eastern Pennsylvania during my school vacation week, and yeah, so, and my parents dropped their dumb sheepdog off while I was away, and my wife said, "You better get back here quick." The Instagram relationship guru says, dudes, all she really wants is for you to hold her emotional puke bucket, to thank her for sharing, ask her if there's any more where that came from. I can't imagine that this is the kind of nurture anyone would crave. My wife says she would love that. The alternative for me would be not holding a puke bucket. The alternative for her would be puking alone. We are driving to the Gillfeather Turnip Festival in rural Vermont because we are New England liberals with master's degrees. We cannot afford NPR tote bags, and what else are we supposed to do? Shankar Vedantam's guest says, sometimes in relationships, a cactus is in love with a fern. Our eyes meet, and for maybe the second time in our entire marriage, we are on exactly the same wavelength. She, of course, is the fern, thriving in clustered community, in soggy soil, with nightly rain, regular sunshine. Without daily tending, her broad, thin fronds so easily curl. It keeps happening. I swear, I just gave her water yesterday, or maybe the day before, but without that daily care, she cannot grow, and my occasional sprays with a mister bottle will only do so much. So I guess that makes me the cactus. And it's not about the spines. I try to keep mine soft. It's more about my niche in the ecosystem, the way I sprout a comfortable distance from everyone I love, because you can't spread your roots when it's too crowded. I know for a lot of plants that works just fine, but I was born different. I sprouted in a place that taught me to hoard connection when you can get it, and not expect any the next day. I'm photosynthetic too, you know. I need sun and rain a couple times a year, but she just keeps looking at my dry gravel and is so eager to overwater. I want to absorb the rain. I want to let my pleats unfurl, barrel out, and make it last. I want her to feel like that every day, but for her broad fronds to stay the way they are requires daily tending, the setting of a reminder alarm, and a shift in perspective. So the cactus buys a watering can and a fresh bucket, a box of Kleenex for her bedside table. And the fern will do what the fern will do. And sometimes that means I get flooded On a day I need at least. But there are worse things than being loved a little too much. After a poet named Lewis Jenkins. Curled up, bicep flexed and tucked into my left armpit, I have this auxiliary limb I don't usually talk about, but there it is. I call it auxiliary. To call it merely extra, though I suppose accurate, could imply so many things I clearly do not mean, and not having one themselves, I wouldn't want anyone to believe I feel any particular way about it, when in fact, I don't. It is small, the limb, but perhaps you would suppose things about its shape and mechanics based on its location that you really shouldn't. And even if I told you how jacked its tiny muscles are, how dexterous the 3 fingers, 2 elbows, and opposable thumb can be, how deftly it tucks itself up there, stays out of the way when not in use, and how handy it is now to pick your pocket while giving you a hug, you would only have a picture called to mind of your own imagination. Some cartoon alien hand, a worthless T-Rex paw, and we can't have that. No, I don't need to show it to you, just so you can marvel at whatever it is you notice first. You'll obsess about it for days. You'll ask if you can touch it, just to see what it feels like. No, you can't touch it. Stop wondering if I'd let you. I regret even telling you about the way the knobbly knuckles bend, the way the joints fold and unfold so efficiently, and how sometimes I have to have my dress shirts tailored with an extra sleeve. Stop checking your pockets. I didn't even do anything. It's not some creepy proboscis. It's got no slimy coating, no hair, no magical ET finger, or so I've told you. It isn't even that gross, like whatever you suspect it could be. Maybe just a little on the sweaty side and smelling of armpit or spray deodorant. Poking at it will only ruin things between us. How much is it worth to have this confirmation that what I say is true? For me to teach you something you don't really need to know. If you stop asking me about it, you can have your wristwatch back. I undress in the dark, in the pale light of morning. I will shower before sunrise with my eyes closed and the door locked. I don't look down. I get dressed in the bathroom, keep my back to the mirror. Don't wipe away the steam until my shirt is fully buttoned. Look, just long enough to shave quick, run a comb through my hair, look away. Ignore the knock. Put my belt on. Pull it tighter. Are you coming out soon? I cannot answer through the door. You don't talk through a door. I take a pill for the allergies, a pill for the ulcer, a pill for the migraine I do not yet have, and one for the migraine I already do. And I am ready enough. Another day's denial overcome. I have wrapped this shame again, shoved it down deep, or they will never see that I am growing. Still growing. How my baggy clothes became the tight clothes, became the clothes I could no longer wear. With secrets buried in basement boxes where they cannot taunt me. And the new doctor mentions what the old doctor mentioned, and the one before him, as though diet and exercise are just things I had forgotten to do all these years. As though I'd been waiting to eat my fruits and vegetables for this opportune moment, as if I hadn't thought about longevity or my children. And the new doctor mentions I should eat from a smaller plate, a salad plate, a dessert plate, a tiny saucer, as if this will satisfy the slightest bit of hunger, at a time when hunger is the only problem I feel capable of solving, the only one I cannot hide from. that will not go away when I close my eyes. Humans have long wondered at the meaning, length, and complexity of whale vocalizations. It's not a mating call. They are doing their taxes. For the first time, filing as head of pod is generally the most tedious. The tax form must be sung into the SOFAR layer in its entirety by the filing deadline. One mistake on the form, and they have to start again at the beginning. On account of the high conductivity of seawater, few cetaceans are able to file their 1040 electronically. Uncertainties abound over circumstances under which traditional migration routes may be counted as business travel, or whether adult orcas and belugas raised in captivity can still be claimed as dependents. There is always some debate over whether to deduct the removal of barnacles and whale lice as a medical expense when neither is actually a parasite. And when lunge-feeding mysticetes ingest some stray floating algae with their krill, or the occasional seabird caught bobbing on the surface unaware, its nutritive properties must be determined according to the tax table to know whether to categorize said bycatch as earned income. Each year there is fraud. Countless stories of those swimming fast and loose with the tax loopholes. The one who spat out Jonah after 3 days tried to call it a charitable gift. And the other, who had swallowed the boat with Pinocchio and his father, did not claim the fish he had also engulfed. Geppetto had reeled them into his craft from the stomach waters, and the sperm whale wrote them off as theft. There is the story of the loneliest whale on earth belting out its tax return at frequencies no other whale can hear. Perhaps this is intentional, the perfect excuse to have missed the filing deadline. Perhaps he is the customer service representative from the Cetacean Revenue Service, and that's why no one can get through. Perhaps they are all on the verge of extinction because they are still waiting for last century's returns. Nothing in this world is certain, except two things. Whales, of all creatures, are intimately familiar with them both. She turns to me beside her on the couch. 16 times 3 plus 2. Hold up your fist. No, 2 fists. She wraps yarn around my hands. How big is a baby's head? Having given birth to 2 more children than I have, I would expect her to know this one, but this is not a question. This is higher mathematics. The complex calculus of A or X, the thickness of yarn, Y, the size of the needle. As Z approaches winter, it's an asymptote. My wife is knitting. Always a gift. Always for someone else, because she will not knit for herself. She used to knit her father these thick wool socks, and he wore them threadbare till the wool was all felted. Nights, she'd sit up beside me, muttering, knit 1, purl 1, knit 2, purl 2, and I am 3rd generation knitter American. I know these words, uttered often in my home, but I will never speak the language of casting on or binding off. After the funeral, she gave me a pair of her father's socks. My feet fit them, but how strange it is to wear a sonnet that was penned for someone else. There's so much more than yarn in the patterns, in the block, in the cable. Into each stitch she knits her warm embrace. Knit 1. The sweet sound of kisses. Knit 2. Purl 2. The smell of chocolate chip cookies fresh off the spatula. Knit 1. Purl 1. How remarkable that a garment so porous will keep us so warm. When I think of her knitting, what I remember most are the mistakes. The moments she realizes she has dropped the stitches too quickly. This hat will never fit. We use the term unraveling to describe a slow descent into madness, but how calmly she plucks the needles from their burrs, pulls the lead, watches the rows dissolve order to disorder in seconds, and then so calmly casts on again, like none of it ever happened. Christmas morning, I unwrap a pair of socks, or sometimes one sock and a promise. Yeah. She knits them for me in secret, in spare moments at work. And nights I abandon her to read poems to strangers, She says she hopes I like them. She doesn't tell me how many times she started over, that she tried a new way to turn the heel that didn't come out the way she expected, that she dropped a stitch on the left one here as if I would ever have noticed. No, she just hopes I like them, and how could I not? I look at them and I'm convicted. All I ever knit for her are a few lines here or there about our family. Pearl a stanza about our children that might nudge a tear across her cheekbone, but too often I read them to a room full of strangers before sharing them with her in the privacy of our living room. She says she doesn't mind the imperfections. Later she will confide that the phrase is actually purl two together, and it can be done in forward loop or back loop. I probably should have, but she doesn't mind the imperfections. Things I knit for her smell like our basement and unfolded laundry, but she still doesn't mind. And I could stare at the things that she knits for hours and never find a flaw. The patterns always make sense. Like there's no other way it could have been done.
They call me the Sappho of Philly. They call me the Sappho of Philly because I'm a dyke about town. Because I took a girl to see Drive-Away Dolls at the AMC in the Fashion District after a poetry reading at T-Mom's, and we made out so much during that I can't remember if it was a good movie or not. Oh my God. Because I can remember when the Fashion District was still called the Gallery, because I was tripping over cute emo girls and mall goths in their trip pants when Philadelphia Mills was still named after Benjamin Franklin, because Benjamin Franklin may have made love with more women than me, but I have loved more dykes than him and never got syphilis as a result. Because I have loved women across this city from Parkwood to Point Breeze, because when I jerked my ex-girlfriend off on her couch in Point Breeze while we watched Drive-Away Dolls, I realized it was a good movie. Because when I fingered my ex-girlfriend while watching Love Lies Bleeding on her couch in Point Breeze, I realized how good it feels to make someone you love feel good. Because when I called my ex-girlfriend daddy and sucked their strap on their couch in Point Breeze between unwatched episodes of She-Ra, it felt good. Because when I held my ex-girlfriend while watching Bound on a couch in Point Breeze, they began to weep, and I realized how carrying the grief of someone you care for is not only a kind act, but a necessary one if you want to love them. Because a week before we were supposed to move in together, she went to New York instead of deciding her grief. Because a week before we were supposed to move in together, she went to New York, deciding her grief was too heavy to share and leaving me behind to carry my own. And because I want to love myself, I did. They call me the Sappho of Philly because I won't even speak to you if you haven't seen the Wachowski sisters' 1996 lesbian heist masterpiece, Bound. Because the first time I saw Bound, I was in a cramped West Philly row home exactly 4 years after I started estrogen. Because I didn't transition just to become a woman. I transitioned because I love women so much that the only thing that made sense was to become one. Because after I transitioned, eventually I stopped being a woman and just became a dyke. Because after I transitioned, I met a woman on Halloween and Reanimator, not knowing she would be the first woman I fell in love with while living as a woman. Because after I transitioned, I got a crush on a woman after we met on Halloween in a West Philly coffee shop, and I started writing poems again. Because I met a woman on Halloween at the Reanimator on Pine Street, and a week later we were pressed against each other, listening to my friend's band play a basement show in Pashung, and it felt like we were two lines pressed together in a poem. Bodies becoming a couplet, two parallel paths that aren't complete without each other's rhythm and rhyme. Because I went on a date with a woman for the first time after becoming a woman and started writing songs again. Because a few blocks away from the coffee shop we met, we stood outside under all the stars of that November sky, and I kissed and kissed. And it was the first time I kissed a woman after becoming a woman, and it was the first time a kiss made me feel like a song. Beneath that midnight sky, she pulled a chorus out of me. My mouth became a lyric. My heart thrummed a string of notes I had never heard before, because even though she broke my heart, I got to fall in love with a woman for the first time as a woman. They call me the Sappho of Philly because I kissed 112 people at Pride and only fell in love with one of them. Because I write poems to make girls I barely know fall in love with me and it never works. Because I write poems to get laid and it does. Because I've laid my way across this city but I've fallen in love only a few times. Because I've clung to relationships that almost killed me with people I didn't love because they were cis lesbians and I thought that meant they saw me as a real woman. Because even after it ended, at least I got good breakup poems out of it. Because I've run away from lovers that were good for me because I figured they'd hurt me anyway, and the breakup poems always felt half-hearted because it was my fault for running. Because despite the cis lesbians I've always tried to impress, to feel more like a woman, the best relationships I've been with are always bisexual women and non-binary dykes. Because all my best breakup poems are about bisexual women and non-binary dykes because they were the breakups that mattered. Because I'm in love again, and this time I'll have the serenity to put fear aside, the courage to stick around, and the wisdom to know that she's worth fighting for. Because I'll write poems about her, but not to win her over, and not to get her to fuck me, and not to make her fall in love with me, but just because I want to. Just because I love her so much that I want to write her poems. Because I want to remember every moment together, and the only way I know how to do that is to scrawl list poems in a notebook on the bus while I go to work. They call me the Sappho of Philly because I started calling myself that. But I've given up names before, and I'll give up another if that's what I have to give up to be with someone I love. But I know I won't, because the kind of person who makes you carve off pieces of yourself isn't the kind of person who actually loves you. If I'm going to be loved, I want to be loved for who I am. And who I am is the goddamn Sappho of Philly.
Buddy, so this is a poem I wrote about a word that I really dislike. It's also a goddamn mess, so we're going to figure out whether or not it's good together. It's called Against Situationship. Does nobody want to be a paramour anymore? I posed the question to the assembled shards of my ego, which I've taken care to arrange here on the sidewalk, and which tonight, almost from a certain angle, if you try hard enough, look like they may have once been a whole person. I ask because, as I stand here, it occurs to me that I am well and truly and finally too old for this shit, and choosing to live in forgiving vagueness and vagaries serves no one but an unmoored intellectualism and a calcified Catholic martyr complex. Or, to put it simply, I can no longer wait for someone pretty to read my tarot again and fuck my shit up. Seriously, pretty people keep fucking my shit up by seeing my future long before it comes into focus in the music crescendos, and thus I have long since trusted them too much before remembering that I too have an occasional need to glean what my cards may hold or dictate, or, barring that, an occasional need to be called pretty myself. Humbly, what an odd thing to half-ass, no? This world hasn't been gentle with any of us for some time, but we solve it by turning a moment into a vessel. Ugh. Everything's fucking notable. Everyone can hold something. It is neither novel, nor fun, nor arduous, nor involving just to acknowledge that a thing is happening and call it a night, as if a thing happening happens all the time. Our cosmos is, in its near entirety, composed of things that did not happen at all. When a thing happens, that's just the one thing. An infinite number of other things did not happen. In fact, taken another way, so many more things did not happen than did happen that noticing the thing that happening seems inconsequential, even performative from a certain angle, like it isn't anything less than a miracle that anything is anywhere, and perhaps now you're beginning to understand that I really don't get out much. That this search for a word is less about principles and more about holding on to a thing happening as best I can. So, what, lover? There's something vaguely disco about that, and I'm not Flannery O'Connor enough to be a beau. A flame? I haven't owned a leather jacket in a decade, so no. Suitor could be fun. Darcy was a suitor. So was Collins. I just found out about the word innamorato, but I'm only a quarter Italian, so the issue veers into one of stolen valor. I live unshackled by the need to turn anyone into a muse, although, do not get it twisted, I say such a thing not to demonstrate my virtue, merely to imply that I lack the alchemical compound of supernatural talent and criminally insane necessary to do that to somebody. Should the Erinyes arrive one day to punish me for any of my collected hubris, it will have nothing to do with love or delusions of grandeur, but quite possibly everything to do with their incensed demand that I stop sending the three of them so much fan mail. While crass out of its context, perhaps the brutish literalism of the phrase live-in sex butler could suffice. I like cooking. I like being told what to do even more than I like cooking, and I'm a world leader in terrible British accents, but now I suppose I'm turning this back into a joke. Perhaps I ought to try living beyond the purview of something so pedestrian as a label, and by that I mean I am out here trying to die of consumption in a loft somewhere in Paris with my beloved wailing mournfully and operatically into my lap like my mother before me. Do not hold me to this. I cannot afford a loft in Paris. Or mournful opera most days. Or consumption, any way you turn the noun. Or a lover most nights. Or death, accompanied by an aria or not. Fact is, I am well and truly and quietly too old to be this hopeless. A quiet street after dark works wonders on memory. Once upon a time, I lived in a bed with someone who called me Sunbeam. And that was years ago now, and I haven't been that atmospheric since. I'm reading my own future now. I don't think the dark buildings up ahead are churches. I don't see a ring wrapping around any of my fingers, and I don't hear the laugh of a kid with my hair. It's still dark, but the thought lingers. It's after midnight now. That's technically morning, no? I have no solid proof to say it will, but I can believe the sun's coming back, no? Thank you.
Michelle is always eager. She is even eager to be born. And so 2 months early, she decided it was time to come out. James still had the Corvette then, not yet the begrudged owner of a minivan with a full array of safety features. So when he drove it to the emergency room as fast as it would go, the police were unable to catch up with him. Of course, when he got Rachel and the crowning baby to the hospital, the officers left him alone. But for 42 minutes, James felt like a real outlaw with an army of troopers racing after him. Michelle was still small, too small for Rachel's liking. Michelle started crawling at 6 months out of the incubator when Rachel and James had sat and stood and paced for 10 weeks, like sitting and standing and pacing along the edge of a cliff face in early morning when cloud gathers beneath you and a fall might just lead you to a hazy blue-gray infinity. Always so eager, Michelle would roll and tumble across the plush rugs spread across the floor of the cabin that James and his brother had built when he first moved to Arkansas. His brother, a proud uncle with more pictures of Michelle in his wallet than either James or Rachel had, still lived next door, 7 miles down the country road. Perhaps Michelle was becoming too eager to gulp in the air when laughing, or too eager walking to keep her balance, yet not eager enough to start talking. Rachel would be the one to take her to the doctor's appointments where words like prognosis and ductus arteriosus and developmental impairment would repeat over and over like a mantra until the cruelty underneath the meanings would be all that was left. And yet, Michelle was so eager to love her mother that she refused to sit in the exam table without crawling to the edge to better reach Rachel's tumbling curls and tangle them into knots with her tiny, eager hands. Michelle's uncle, Roger, was the one who gave her the tricycle. He even showed her how to ride it, always the most patient with Michelle's stuttering and stammering. Barely tall enough to fit onto the seat, Michelle had to have Roger lift her onto it. But once she got to the hang of it, she rode it all around the living room. Rachel tried to be present, but James's shouting on the phone with the insurance companies always dragged her back to the what-ifs and worst-case scenarios, that the brochures and the leaflets at the doctor's office had warned her about. James would never let his wife see him cry. He would take his tears like a man, alone in the minivan. Or late at night, when the two great loves of his life slept, often in the same bed. Rachel had become an expert at listening to Michelle's labored but eager breathing, even in her sleep. The move to the city was meant to bring them closer together, but all it did was bring them closer to James's work. He refused to be further than 4 miles from his daughter at any given moment. Rachel took a new job as an executive assistant. The insurance plan was the main draw. Dependents, covered. Pre-existing conditions, covered. The new mantra of their lives as they debated starting Michelle in kindergarten. She was so eager to befriend other children that she had taken to talking to her stuffed animals. Still all stammers and stumbles, but so eager to communicate that she'd make the sounds before she'd even come up with something to say. First grade was hard on Michelle, but harder still on Rachel. Every snotty child with dirty hands that her mind conjured would be giving her daughter every disease she could think of, from hepatitis to the plague. James stopped trying to dissuade her worry. Work and home, and work and home. A private mantra that shielded him from any inevitability. The end. He could never decide on one nightmare scenario or another, so his mind conjured them all. She stumbles, too eager to be part of some game or another, and falls, her weak body breaking under its own weight. Him, T-boned in an intersection as he races to the hospital, no longer in his Corvette, but in the slow and steady minivan he had traded for. He could die in the streets beneath a dramatic range, a swelling score of strings and brass, and no more private guilty pain. Someone should stay at the apartment. They had decided that, but nobody wanted to be the one to leave Michelle in hospital. But someone should stay at the apartment. After all, what good could they be for their child if they were forced to contend with each other's eagerness for blame and fault? The part of him that knew they wouldn't have to keep the fighting a secret from Michelle forever knew that being strong for the child was now something they did alone. It was decided that someone should stay at the apartment, but neither of them wanted to go home to an empty house that at any moment may become haunted by the spirit of their daughter. Nobody ever went back to the apartment, but it was decided that somebody should. The judge was eager to clear the day's docket, as Rachel and James were eager to be forever uncoupled. There was no more reason to stay together. They eagerly said, shouted, screamed, cried, and eventually decided. They could have alternating custody of the plot, always able to leave flowers and eager words without ever having to see each other. If the thing they shared was gone, then there was no reason to share anything at all. There was no shared pain, no shared frustration, no shared guilty boredom, no shared responsibility that they were willing to allow each other. Their pain would be their own, selfishly and wholly, and they would leave resentment and bitterness to eagerly decompose as they eagerly moved on.
I'm gonna keep it quick. Just let yourself out of the labyrinth, she hisses. I write lipstick love letters in the mirror for Medusa. Maybe my stone-cold heart cracked open like a geode and I could finally be happy then. But this ain't your grandmama's corruption of champions. We're those sexy anthroplanes, and my love is a red eye populated with sleepers and the business class commuters mulching geese and then falling out of the sky. It's omens knowing that Earhart was the first of many girl Icaruses. I'm happy like a clown tying a balloon into a sword, falling for an excited younger Damocles. Thanks.
Voices. Did you know eyes are drills? They bore deep holes. My neck is honeycomb, my chest a hostel for wrens, my empty orbits drip. I remember weeping, but may only muster blood. Voices fly on winds of time. Did you know I'm a girl? I inscribe I in enduring ink with cute curlicues. I want to be a painting that will be studied forever. My interpretations are endless, but instead they stare. Voices fly on winds of time. Did you know people hate me? Not me, I suppose, but us. I am not an I. Division's a delusion of sight. All my sisters are in me. Our ululations match pitch. We cry blood from plucked eyes. Voices fly on winds of time. Did you know I'm a different painting? Not the smears of surrealists or the branding irons of ad copy. I'm what made my paints, and I am the inexorable exigencies of the episteme. Phenomena is guttering candlelight. Voices fly on winds of time. Did you know we are all scarred by the scourges of the episteme, slicing the tongues of the silent, bloviating a bosses bubbling in the surf of my sister's scarlet sea? Pens tell swords to slice. Voices fly on winds of time. Do you know who we are? The girls who save shopping for shadows and silence. The girls who'd fucking kill to just have a fucking hug. I miss you despite the slicing. In your arms the world is safe. Did I ever hear you? Do you hear our voice? Beyond your bloviations, beyond your self-same sobs. We're weeping, and the tears are bubbling and bloody, and it won't stop. It won't fucking stop. In our arms, the world is safe, but voices fly on winds of time. Thanks.
Dad shot the weed whacker when it acted up, but compared to Grandma, who got the belt out whenever the angels started whispering, he's mild. In '82, when Grandpa used an inorganic fertilizer, Grandma clawed their tomato plants out of the ground, roots and all, wailing, "It's better they die." I've got her name. They buried her before we could share it, and passing it on was a big choice on Dad's part. They're both big fish, Dad and Grandma, John Joe and Susan. I mean, Susan died in '86, and Johnny's still looking over his shoulder for her, so much he inked her on there. 2011, his 35th birthday. He stole the tattoo from Raising Arizona. Big letters, "Mama never loved me." Right there, next to the White Mountains. 2025, last year, he stick and poked grandma's / my name onto his thumb his first week out on bail. Big fish make big choices. They swim through birthdays, sports games, recitals, swallowing hooks for the time dad or that time grandma. Like how Dad's first heart attack was Christmas Eve, even God's birthday is about John. One of his six-pack nights, he told me he'd make a perfect character in someone else's story, not knowing he'd been the local cryptid since 2002, when he was 24 and I was 3. Today, he is 50, 15 years older than Grandma ever got, and turns out age strips down our mythical parents. It guts the fish to pull wrinkled, tired worms from their stomachs. Worms who have discovered weed and moved to California and call at 1 a.m. for help filling out the FAFSA, and who have forgotten all the times they called you fat. Thanks.